Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And welcome, everybody, to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider. And if you're listening today and you're like, oh my goodness, this guy's fantastic, I need to hear more of the Andrew Cooperrider. Well, you can go ahead and listen to the Andrew Cooperrider Show right here on 970 AM, Sundays at 6 p.m., and you can watch this beautiful, beautiful face of mine Wednesdays at 11 on WBNA. Today, I've got a wonderful guest, Mike Harmon here, former state auditor, former state house rep, current state outreach director for the Commonwealth Policy Center. He's joining us. So if you wanted to join into that conversation, you want to ask some questions as we're going through it, well, you can hit up our text line. Shoot me over a message at 502-571-0970. Once again, that's 502-571-0970. Ask your questions. Ask an auditor. As some would say, let's ask an auditor.
Ask an auditor. And of course, I got to write down those times of your shows. You know, we enjoy the face to see. You know,
of course. I mean, it's a beautiful face. At least my wife thinks so. Only one, but anyways,
well, at least there's one.
Yeah, right. Absolutely, absolutely. So we're here to discuss a few different things. You do have a book out here. Oh, we're both holding it up there. Called Papaw's POV.
Papaw's
POV.
Yes.
Look, should be spelled with an A, I guess, or an O.
Well, some people spell Papaw P-A-W-P-A-W. Some people spell it P, like us, P-A-P-A-W. And some people pronounce P-A-P-A-W as Papaw, but we call it Papaw.
Okay, well, there you go. So we're going to be discussing that, but before I dig into it, I wanted to talk to you about this story that I think broke kind of last night on WDRB about thousands, potentially, of illegal immigrants receiving driver's licenses without even, not only false documents and everything else, but also they didn't do any kind of driving tests either. So not only are we issuing IDs, it appears based on the WDRB investigation that we're issuing IDs to illegal immigrants, we're also issuing them driver's licenses.
And maybe they need to double check and see if they registered them to vote, too, with the motor voters.
And you'd mentioned that before, too. You had an issue with...
Well, my son-in-law, he's from Syria. He's an American citizen now, but he's from Syria. He met my oldest daughter in Ghana, Africa. Took us about 2 years and about $20,000 to get him out of Ghana, Africa legally. So he did come here legally. And then before he got his citizenship, he had got a green card and he was going to get his driver's license. And they tried to register him to vote. And thankfully, my daughter was there, and she was like, no, we can't do that because if you register to vote, it knocks you out of getting a citizen. I don't know if it's forever, but for a long time.
Because it's illegal for him to be registered to vote.
Yes, exactly. And so we need to make sure that they watch that and not do that and train the people not to ask people to register and ask me if they're a citizen first. Maybe that's a good question because it's actually supposed to be on the card. It's actually on the card.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in the House one time, we had the Secretary of State, the one that was appointed, and I asked her, I said, on this card it says, they have to be a citizen. How do you know? And they said, well, we trust them. So
has that not changed?
Well, it probably has changed now. I hope so anyway. But if not, we need to look into that.
Well, I mean, based on that story, it's a crazy story. And the reason why I wanted your feedback on it is because of something that you discovered as an auditor we'll bring up in a second. This woman comes forward as a whistleblower saying, look, This is happening 3, 4, 5 times a day at several offices where illegal immigrants are coming in, paying $300 under the table,
Right.
I guess, to the person taking it and then the supervisor or something. And then they were issuing them driver's licenses
Without doing the background check. The background checks.
Well, they would take the false documents.
Yeah.
They would not do the correct thing. And then the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet kind of detected something was wrong and would send out these notices to them. And apparently they sent out over 1,500 notices that they caught of licenses being issued that weren't supposed to be being licensed. And the people doing this were all through this, I guess, the staffing agency that the state government has hired to do their driver's licensing. So we have driver's licensing that's already a mess. I mean, everybody hates it.
Yes.
Hot topic. Everybody hates it.
Yes, they do.
And now you find out that if you paid $300, you can go to the front of the line. They'll issue a fake, a real ID, but not really real.
There's some people that are legal might pay $300 just so they can get in front of the line. You know?
Where was that offer?
Where was that for us? You know,
if you came down, you're like, you can skip this 2-3 hour late, and listen, you can skip the eye exam too, because that's a risky thing right now.
That is true.
Because if you fail the eye exam, and I took it, it takes a few seconds. If you fail the eye exam, you then have to go to an eye doctor to say you're okay to do it. That's a new thing. The eye, and a lot of them, the complaints I'm hearing is they don't even know how to operate it, where they'll sit there and fail the eye exam, then go to an eye doctor, pay the money to see an eye doctor, and the eye doctor's like, you can drive, you're fine. Or they're having a hard time finding an eye doctor willing to even attest to that, because they're like, well, I think you're fine, I don't want the liability.
I think if you bring them a valid, eye exam, they should go ahead and do it, not even have to have the.
Well, if you pre-bring them the eye exam, you're right, but then you got to pay for it.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's extra cost. Some people don't want to pay it.
Yeah.
Apparently, though, this whole time, we could have been,
had we known,
paying $300 and skipping the line.
I'm getting ready to renew my license because I went and got my real ID, but I couldn't get because I couldn't get the actual 4 or 8 years because I was coming up for renewal. So they said, well, we'll update your current one to the real ID, but you got to come back in a few months to get it. So
or
do it online, but you still got to get the exam.
$300
or $300. We could do that.
That might be worth it to not deal with.
Or we could do it even better. Maybe we could design an app to work with them where they don't even have to come in. They could just pay the $300.
Oh,
Venmo.
There you go, something like that. Well, and I brought that up to you, because that's definitely something that the type of thing that an auditor discovers. Yes. And you actually discovered during COVID a unemployment fraud scheme that was going on with employees of the state giving themselves unemployment. What was happening?
Well, and the ones that actually worked for the unemployment office. There were some that worked for the unemployment office that were actually giving themselves unemployment. Maybe they had worked a part-time job somewhere and they lost the part-time job, but they still had their full-time job. And so they were doing it so they could qualify, because, they had those really huge enhancers. For some people, they made more if they were on unemployment than they made when they actually worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And so they would get laid off from a part-time job.
Right.
They normally wouldn't qualify for unemployment.
Right.
But they'd file for unemployment on that employer.
Yep.
Their full-time job was actually at the unemployment office.
Yep.
And then they would access their own file and approve themselves for unemployment.
Well, now, when we did it, we couldn't prove that they actually made the changes themselves, but we did prove that they accessed their own files.
So they were accessing it.
They were.
You don't know what they did in the file.
We don't know what they did specifically.
So they could have been improving it. They could have
been not
falsifying documents.
But we had several that were actually drawing it. I'd have to go back and look at that out to see how many. But it was several $100,000 that went out that did not need to go out. So.
And so those are the kinds of things that the auditor's tasked with. So the auditor's not just tasked with finding misspent money per se on the back end. They're also tasked with making sure government entities are following correct and legal procedures.
Correct. And what I always said, and this was not statistically accurate or inaccurate because I didn't run the numbers, but about 95% of the people tried to do what was right and not steal. The problem is a lot of them, for whatever reason, couldn't follow the laws to the T. So we had to help them, put proper controls in place. We had to make sure that they were following the laws and the books. And we did everything from, fiscal court audits to the sheriffs and county clerks. And we even, while I was there, since I had a legislative background, one of the biggest questions most people didn't realize is we actually charge for audits. We get some money from the taxpayers, but we actually charge for the audits. And so we work to try to help reduce some of those costs, especially for your sheriffs and county clerks, because we were finding that sheriffs ended up having like 50% of their audits were clean, did nothing at all. County clerks, 2/3. So we came up with an AUP, an agreed upon procedure, which still had a lot of procedures, still was good, but was a little less procedures. And we were saving them like 66, 67% on the cost of their audit. So,
well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So when you are coming in and auditing these individuals,
yes,
and you're taking a look at things, like one thing that I remembered seeing was one of the things you caught Bashir on was they had a data breach. And
yes,
didn't follow the law in alerting people to it.
They were supposed to alert us. They were supposed to alert the attorney general. They were supposed to alert, I think, maybe the state police as well, and they did not until someone, kind of like your situation today, had a whistleblower that let the attorney general know, and by that we found ourselves as well.
Well, thank you so much for detailing that to us. When we come back, we'll start digging into your book a little bit. Got to ask you about McConnell. You mentioned that in there.
Oh, okay.
We're going to
Yes.
talk about that when we come back. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider. We'll be back here in a few short minutes.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. Host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider, joined by Mike Harmon here, former state auditor, former state House rep, current state outreach director for the Commonwealth Policy Center. We're discussing audits. We're discussing his book. We're digging into a lot of things. We're going to talk about a lot of interesting things. So if you want to join into the conversation, feel free to shoot us a text, 502-571-0970. Once again, that's 502-571-0970. Now, Mike, here, your book, Papa's.
Yes. Now,
POV.
now, also, if anybody wants to text their favorite joke of mine, if there is one, they could do that too, couldn't they?
So let's talk about your jokes real quick.
Okay. Let's talk about Papa's.
Yeah, let's talk about your jokes in the book.
Okay, that sounds good. Which is most of my total.
I have read many books.
Yes.
In fact, here's a fun fact about me.
All right.
I still hold the record for the most amount of books read in my old middle school. So
Did you get like a free pizza or something?
I got an award for
Okay.
it. I
Oh.
did get an award at
Did you
graduation.
get a reward or just an
so
award?
outside of like they had a accelerated reader where you
Yes.
like, you
Yeah.
read a book and then you took a test on it.
Yeah.
Just those books outside the books I read on my own,
Yes.
I believe I was right around 315
That's
in
fantastic.
3 years.
You know, my wife
So
and I,
just
we
there.
have a joke together. She loves to read, and I know how to read.
There you go.
There you go.
So I bring that up because in all my years of reading books,
Uh-oh.
I've never read a book where the author makes a joke and then writes LOL afterwards.
Man.
Because even in writing, Mike Harmon will laugh at his own jokes.
You've got to laugh at your own jokes. Sometimes you're the only one laughing at your jokes. So.
I just was like, even in print, Mike Harmon will laugh at his own jokes.
I do write the way that I speak. So,
There you go.
Yes,
There you go.
Exactly.
But so through the book, a lot of interesting things, interesting stories. I learned a lot about you, and
Crazy stuff sometimes.
crazy stuff. I learned that you leave people behind in floods.
Well,
I learned that
I was seeking help.
you were seeking
And they wouldn't
help.
push the car. So
Yeah.
they wouldn't push the car in that flood. So I left them up on the hill. So
There you go. You guys can stay out in the rain for all I care. You
I
don't
came
wanna
back,
help me
though.
push
I
the
did
car.
come back.
Hours later, before or after you stopped at Speedway and got something to eat.
No. That was we came and got them. Actually, the funny thing was I spent the whole night full suit tie, wet socks, no shoes. We went back and got them because we couldn't get a tow truck. We went to a rescue area, all of us together, and I was going around to introduce myself. You know, can't miss opportunity. Hey, Mike Harmon, Kentucky State Auditor. And somebody came up and said, hey, I want you to meet my wife. So I said, okay. So I put my hand out and say, hey, Mike Harmon, Kentucky State Auditor. And she said, Mike Harmon, you know, we got a Mike Harmon. I said, you do? She said, yeah, but he's a mortician. And though it had been a rough night, I said, well, that's where we differ. Everyone's dying to see him. No one's dying to see the auditor. And then we end up going to the Speedway that you're talking about. Once again, full suit tie, wet socks, no shoes. Put my hand out, shake the hand, the guy behind the counter. Hey, Mike Harmon, Kentucky State Auditor. So then I'm going around looking for some food. And I hear the guy get on the phone. He's like, guess what? We have got the Kentucky State Auditor here. And he's not wearing any shoes. So, you know, you got to turn it into a funny story. So
There you go. Well, one of the things you bring up in the book, kind of early on, little blurb,
Sure.
little photo, little blurb, was when you were first looking at running for state auditor, you went and saw Mitch McConnell. The sentence before that was, you know, I wanted people to tell me what it was like to run statewide. I wanted to talk to people about it.
That was statewide. Now,
Yeah.
Yes, statewide.
Yeah, when you're
yes.
running statewide,
Yes.
first time for auditor,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so you went to see Mitch McConnell, and I wanted to bring that up because
Actually, it was when I wasn't sure what I was going to run for, but go ahead.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. But you went to see him. You're
Yes.
looking at running
Yeah,
statewide. You went
yes,
to see
yeah.
old Mitchie
Yes,
M.
yes.
And spoke with him there. Now, you started running for office in 1996 or 7.
1998 was the first
1998.
time that I lost the first two House races.
Right. Okay, 98. I was 6 years old at the time. So
There you go.
obviously, I'm not as far back in Kentucky politics
but
as you
the
are.
story you're talking about with Mitch, I had three offices written down for statewide. Prayed. Nothing. And I finally said, Lord, if you want me to run, you're just going to have to make it a little bit clear because it's clear as mud. Well, as soon as I prayed that, about 2 weeks later, I get a call from somebody saying, hey, there's this businessman in Louisville, Phil Moffitt, who's going to run for governor, and he wanted me to talk to me about being his lieutenant governor. So that was in 2010.
That was 2010
for the 2011 race.
So my point of bringing that up, though, is recently,
Yes.
especially in the Senate race to replace McConnell,
Yes.
there's been a lot of discussion about McConnell's quote unquote as legacy. Obviously, current voting record, prior voting record. One of the candidates, Nate Morris, striking a very anti-McConnell tone.
Right.
The other two, they're not exactly praising McConnell. I'll say this: none of them won his endorsement.
Right.
Which says something.
No, that seems like an accurate assessment.
What, having been around state politics and everything else, how do you respond to people who say, McConnell's awful, we don't need his endorsement, he needs to go, he's horrible, like you kind of see the Nate Morris group saying.
I understand.
And the crowd, and then I'm down at the night before Fancy Farmer, the breakfast, McConnell walks in and it's a standing ovation.
Right.
And when I post about that online, people are like, are these people crazy? They're detached from reality. How do you respond to those people? How do you feel about those sentiments?
I kind of addressed that when I ran for governor, which people forget that I ran for governor.
I don't.
But I kind of addressed that because, we've got two wonderful senators. We've got Senator Mitch McConnell. We've got Senator Rand Paul. I probably lean more towards Rand Paul than I do Senator McConnell. Both of them have had wonderful accomplishments, but they've also had things I disagree about. If it wasn't for Senator McConnell working with Trump in his first term, we wouldn't have had 3 constitutionally conservative or reasonably conservative Supreme Court justices. We wouldn't have had 300 lower courts. And so there's is there things that, and of course, as McConnell pointed out, he helped get whether you agree with it or disagree with it, he helped get the one big beautiful bill through, which is what Trump wanted. But there's things that McConnell has done, and there's some things that I went against Trump even as auditor sometimes. Not Trump. I'm sorry, went against McConnell even when I was auditor, and
such as.
Well, okay. I probably didn't want to mention that, but when
that's how you know I'm a good interviewer.
That's the problem when you come on these type of shows. No, I don't think they were really excited about me doing the audit of the University of Louisville, but I think they respected me highly after I did it, and it's probably very.
What'd you find? What's going on at?
Oh, the University of Louisville? Well, they had the University of Louisville Foundation. Well, at the time, Dr. Ramsey was both the president of that, and president of the board, and you had the foundation, which was supposed to be helping the students, was actually lending money to the college. I think it was $67 million, if I remember.
$67 million.
Yes, and so they were supposedly going to be paying that back. And he was able to give himself a raise because from the standpoint he controlled who went on the foundation board. He controlled basically who went on the board. I mean, he has since obviously left. He left, and he was kind of holding up getting information to us to do the audit at that time. And after he left, we were able to get even more information. And I think they used that from everything that we saw. They used our audit as a roadmap to try to help them get back on track. Now, they had some other concerns, obviously, with the patina situation and some of that. But, so it was one of the things. So it was one of the things that we were glad to do. We should have done, and we think it got U of L hopefully back on track.
Do you think the McConnell camp was like, "Don't do this," and you're like, "I have to.
No,
I have to audit. It's who I am."
It wasn't that blatant, but it was. It was one of the things that they would have, preferred that we did not. But I think afterwards, I earned their respect in that regards. And McConnell had mentioned me several times as an example who ran twice and lost twice and went ahead and ran and won. So I think he respects me in that regards.
Well, when we come back, we will dig a little bit into, you spend a lot of time talking about elections in the book, so we will dig into how you feel about modern elections, because that's a little bit of a different feeling
different.
to it. So
it is different.
We'll be back here in a few short minutes.
Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you're back here on Kentucky's Voice. Host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider. Perhaps your favorite host over here at Kentucky's Voice. If so, you should let me know. I appreciate positive reinforcement.
What's
positive
that text
feedback.
number again? Let me text that in there to you.
Well, it is 502-571-0970. 502-571-0970. I appreciate positive reinforcement.
Put some smiley faces in those texts.
Yeah, there
Make
you go.
them feel
Some
good.
hearts or something.
Hearts. The hearts would even be even better. But
Yeah.
if you don't want, if you're non-committal, the smiley faces would be a good first step.
It would make me feel good. But if you have something negative to say, I'm not interested. I'm not going to read it. So don't even send it. You're talking to a dark void. Anyway.
Do you want me to screen your text for you while we're interviewing
It
here?
would make me feel better.
Okay, we could do that.
Yeah, it would
We could
make
do
me
that.
feel better.
Yes, sir.
But if you, however, are watching this and saying, I love Andrew Cooperrider, I want to see more of him, well, you can tune in to me right here at 9:70 a.m., Sundays at 6 p.m., and Wednesdays at 11 on WBNA if you want to see this pretty face right here. Anyways, we're here with Mike Harmon, former state auditor, former state house representative, current state director for Commonwealth Policy Center. He's got a book called Papaws.
Papaws.
POV.
Think
right
of the
here.
Kentucky fruit pawpaws.
There you
Do you
go.
know the Kentucky fruit pawpaws? There is a Kentucky fruit called pawpaws. So.
I don't know,
Yes.
but but so we're talking about his book here, and one of the things you talk a lot about the book,
Yes.
probably because you've ran a lot of them. I mean, you were in the
Yes.
state legislature for how long?
I was in there 13 years. I had 9 total races, but I won 7. I lost those first 2.
Okay, so you ran 9 times for state house representative.
Yes.
You ran
Lieutenant
twice
governor
for
with
auditor, once for lieutenant governor.
Yes. So I'm 7 of 9 for the state house, 2 of 2 for a state wide races. But now the big joke I tell everybody is, I ran 25 years in a row. I actually served 21 years in a row, but I never won a Republican primary. Not one. And typically, I only had 2.
Because you never had a Republican running.
Well,
against
I
you in the
had
primary.
two Republican. One when I ran for lieutenant governor, and that was when we were considered the redheaded stepchild because we were running against David Williams, Senate president, and Richie Farmer. And then of course when I ran for governor. So usually most of my races were like, hey, you want to run? I don't want to run. Hey, you want to run? I don't run. Let's go get Mikey. He'll run. And so that's typically what happened. Now, actually, I went ahead and decided on my own. I wasn't really recruited any time, but jokingly, that is the way it generally happened. Nobody wanted to run for those races. Oh, no Republican's ever going to win those races.
So in the book, though, you talk about, I don't think it would be incorrect for me to say, based upon what you've said in the book, that you don't like negative campaigning. What would you define? First off, because you do talk about, there's times where you said, if I'm attacked, I'll attack, but if you don't attack, I won't attack. Where do you draw the line? What is an attack? What's too personal? What's not too personal? What is free game when it comes to politics? What isn't?
Sure.
What is a good attack ad? Do you think there's any good attack ads? What you don't? What do you think about modern politics? I want you to answer all 12 of those questions.
All right, let me write those down here.
Sentences, go.
Okay, go. Well, from the standpoint of usually what I always said is, if you or your surrogates leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. Once you launch attack ad or your surrogates, then all bets are off. Now, I usually kept it something. We had some discussion off radio. I kept it more on policy things. A perfect example. When I ran in, I think it was 2012, they ran the sitting. He's actually a Republican now, but at the time he was Democrat. Ran a sitting jailer against me. I don't know why, but for state house. And I guess he got like a young man from Center College, maybe a little more liberal than him, to do his Facebook. And so he had on the young man who posted his Facebook had that he was moderate. And so I did a screen grab of that. And then when they went negative, I did cut a radio ad. And I said, hey, I'm Mike Harmon. You're a Kentucky State Representative. I'm a conservative. I've always been a conservative. But apparently my opponent says that he's moderate. But if you want a conservative, I always want a conservative, vote for me. Well, he comes up to me at one of the events and he was like, hey, man, I'm so glad you said that. I didn't know that young man had put that on there. So then he changed it to conservative on his Facebook. Did another screen grab, put it on my Facebook and on my website. Said, hey, now my opponent says that he's switched from moderate to conservative. He said, I know what I am. I'm a conservative. I've always been a conservative. You want a conservative, vote for me. So that's the kind of stuff that you
did. Feels free game.
Yeah.
Now, you said, I won't attack unless you attack me. Now, one thing, just discussion here, point.
Or surrogates.
Surrogates,
yes.
Yeah. One discussion point here when it comes to policy attacks, especially.
Yeah.
No candidate is ever going to tell you the negative things about them.
No.
So no candidate is ever they may stand up there and say, I'm pro Second Amendment.
Right.
But really they voted for gun control every time they've gotten a chance.
Yeah, but you got to look at their vote history. You've got to look like.
Well, you do, but we know the voters don't.
Well, that's true. But
so if you're not willing to tell them the truth, who is?
Well, yeah, but you can put that in particular ads, voting records, and things along that lines. But I usually try to focus more on the perfect example. What happened when I ran for auditor? I only had 45,000. I was going up against Adam Ethan, that had 800,000. And I won't go into the full story; it's in the book. But God blessed us with the victory. But one of the things that helped deliver that victory was that I couldn't go on TV, but my opponent got nervous. And so he ran these attack ads that had me. They pulled like 13 years of travel vouchers, try to make it sound like Harmon Air. I had my own airplane. And the mistake they made is they had a pretty flight attendant serve the body double of me. It wasn't me, obviously. Body double of me a drink. Well, I don't mind people drinking. I'm a teetotaler myself. So that made my Democrat friends mad. It made my Republican friends. But they had my photo and they had my name up at the top for 30 seconds. And it was a good photo. There were plenty of bad photos.
Yeah.
I promise you there were plenty of bad photos, but they put a good photo. And so most people knew it was a attack ad. Most people made mad, but both myself and my wife had people come up to say, hey, I saw Mike's ad. Looked great.
Yeah.
So
because it was a good photo of you.
Yeah, it was a good photo of me.
And so it kind of helped you out
One of the few.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in the book you talked about, you made it sound like you thought it backfired because people knew you're a teetotaler and they were serving you a drink.
Yeah.
You did mention the picture and everything else, and I read that and I thought, wow, Mike has a lot more positive view on the amount of research and paying attention that voters do to the auditor's race than I have, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't think the average voter knew you were a teetotaler at all. They probably didn't even know you.
Well,
but that ad where you look good and they
Yeah.
say your name, because it's a race they don't pay attention to, that probably did help you.
Well, the people
because they
that-
weren't paying attention to the
people
content.
who knew me knew it, but the other thing I did is I went ahead, even though I knew I wasn't going to be endorsed, I went ahead and interviewed with the papers. And so when they ended up not endorsing me, they give you some space to write whatever you want within a certain limit of words. And so part of what I did is I talked about that in those op-eds.
Talked about being a teetotaler.
Teetotaler and the attack ads. And I said, my opponent went to Fancy Farm and talked about, all this cotton candy rhetoric. And I'm like, well, it looks like he's doing his own cotton candy rhetoric. So,
Speaking of Fancy Farm,
yes.
just happened. Was
I
that
know,
your
I-
first Fancy Farm in a while, being a spectator, not on the stage?
That was the only time I'd been to Fancy Farm where I was a spectator. So it was the very first time. All the other times, starting 2015 forward, I was always on stage. Now, last year, obviously, I wasn't because I was no longer auditor, no longer running statewide. Miss it so much.
Now, the Democrats are claiming it's a dying tradition, that it's become so Republican, and Republicans are running everything. And by running everything, they mean running Fancy Farm. So therefore, they're ruining it because they're running it.
Well,
And
there is a dying tradition that's happening at Fancy Farm, but it's not Fancy Farm. It's the Democrats that are a dying tradition. But be careful because they could come back.
They could come back. There was one Democrat this time,
Yes.
that spoke there. But watching it from the crowd compared to up on stage, what are the major differences? Do you notice? Is there something that on stage was a lot scarier to you that you're on the ground? You're like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought.
Well, for one thing, you could hear a lot better if you were not on the stage itself because you couldn't hear other people's speeches. But the one thing, and when I first did my very first Fancy Farm, I had somebody take me out. They gave my wife some pot and pans, my mom pots and pans, and they played loud music. They said, now give your speech. That was the best training. And they also said hydrate. So I drank 7 McDonald's large waters before we went out on stage. And finally, the one thing I did is first year I memorized my speech and everything, was getting ready to go out there, wasn't going to use my cards. And we talked about McConnell. I saw McConnell pull out a crinkly piece of paper and he read his speech. And I was like, if Senator McConnell can read a speech, I can read my speech. And so, of course, then later on I turned it into doing the card flip and doing the "you might be a liberal Democrat," the Jeff Foxworthy type routine. Loved
Hit
it.
us with a few. Go.
Oh, if your ideal of a secure server is waterproofing your basement, you just might be a liberal Democrat. If you think Benghazi is a cream that you put on a rash, you just might be a liberal Democrat.
That one's funny.
Yeah.
I like that last one. The first one took me a second, and I realized you were talking about Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
Little dated.
It
Do you
is.
have any modern ones?
Well, it's been a few years since I.
No, I understand.
Well, if you want to ban ICE in every place, including your refrigerator, you just might be a liberal Democrat. That's a few years.
That's
old.
a good one.
Yeah.
That's still good.
Yeah.
That one's a solid one.
Okay, I'm glad you like that.
I mean, that's coming back,
Yes.
the Democrat hate for ICE.
They hate ICE. They hate most law enforcement.
Yeah, not a lot of love there. So you have talked about, some private conversations kind of mulling around about potentially running for something else. When we come back, we'll talk about your future, what you're doing
Okay.
right now.
Sure.
And then also, we'll dig into a few different things as far as that goes. Now, if you all watching at home have a question here for Mike, you can go ahead and shoot us a text message at 502-571-0970, 502-571-0970. And if you're like, wow, this is a hard-hitting interview. If you're like, I really, really want to see more.
Put the
you
bourbon down.
Yeah, I know. I'm hitting you hard. 60 Minutes, Andrew Cooper Ryder.
That's right.
There together, right?
Right. Well, you're going to re-edit it, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Going through the fire. Anyways, if you want to see more, you can donate to us right here at Kentucky's Voice by texting KY Voice. We'll be back in a few short minutes.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And you're back here on this final segment of Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooper-Ryder. We're sitting here, we're talking to Mike Harmon, discussing his book.
Papa's POV.
There you go.
Available on
Discussing his
Amazon.
book. He's a former state auditor, former state House rep, current state outreach director for the Commonwealth Policy Center.
Correct.
You can, if you have questions, text us 502-571-0970. Saying it now slower. 502-571-0970. Now, Mike,
Yes.
you're at the Commonwealth Policy Center now,
Yes.
state outreach director.
Yes.
What do you do? What's your day look like?
A little bit of everything. You know, one of the great things about the Commonwealth Policy Center, we are there to try to educate and elevate leaders that have a biblical worldview. So we've got a series of candidate trainings coming up over the next couple of months. I'd encourage you to go to commonwealthpolicy.org, Commonwealth Policy Center, .org, and check it out. And then I do a lot of traveling and promoting the Commonwealth Policy Center. And
Speaking of candidates,
yes.
biblical worldview,
yes,
you mentioned this in the book. I'm wondering if you can shed a little more light. So right now, the Supreme Court
yes.
is hearing a challenge on the Obergefell
Yes.
decision regarding same-sex marriage.
Yes.
You do touch upon that in the book, the
Yeah.
views of that. And you mentioned that there was the Kentucky Constitution actually has something on this
Yeah.
that was nullified by that decision.
Correct.
If the Supreme Court comes back and overturns Obergefell,
Yes.
does same-sex marriage get outlawed immediately in Kentucky?
Well, it is incorporated into our Constitution, and that took place back in 2004 while I was still in the House. And we got that passed, and then, of course, it was voted by the voters of Kentucky by like 75, 76%. Really, it would be up to the courts, I guess, to determine if on a federal level, if it was overturned, but it is incorporated still in our Kentucky Constitution.
And what does the Constitution constitutional amendment change exactly say?
The only thing that it says is that marriage is between one man and one woman, and and only that. So
Yeah.
very biblical worldview type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, with that in mind,
Yes.
I'm super sorry. 1 second. Hey, control room. I can hear you guys. Thank you. Sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody, about that. It was just hard. They were having a conversation about audio levels in our ears. Anyways.
Yes.
Back to it, though. So if it was overturned,
Yes.
there is no law in Kentucky legalizing gay marriage, quote unquote. There's no system or process for it.
No, I don't think it's incorporated into the original amendment. There was some talk at that time about civil unions as opposed to the the definition of marriage in that regards. But yes, it would be my understanding. Not an attorney, just a former legislator, but it would be my understanding if that did in fact take place, the overturning of.
So would it be kind of like Roe v. Wade getting overturned was in Kentucky, where
they
immediately
go back to the states, basically.
Yeah, and
that would be my opinion.
So if it goes back to the states, though, we already have something.
Yes.
Saying that.
Yeah, just like when it came to.
So it would technically, it'd be fought out in the courts,
right?
But there would be an argument immediately that every county clerk, regardless of how liberal they are,
right,
would have to stop issuing marriage licenses to same-sex couples.
Probably very similar to after the ruling that everyone was supposed to, be issue license to, whether it's male, female, type. So it would probably be the reverse of that. Yeah, I would think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that specific topic? I mean, you kind of mentioned it in the book where you mention your feelings on that amendment and everything else.
Sure.
Since it's become legal and people talk about it and everything else, has your feelings on that changed at all? Do you
No,
still?
I think you love and respect everybody, but I do think that marriage really is supposed to be a religious, holy, biblical sacrament. And it's supposed to be between one man and one woman. So, I mean, to me, that hasn't changed. I guess like the Chick-fil-A owner, I may get a few emails on that. But that.
Well, I'm just curious, on that standpoint.
Yeah.
I have my own answer to this question.
Sure.
So if you're like, how do you feel? Don't feel like you can't ask me that.
Okay.
But if you're struggling. But anyways, so what you described was biblical worldview, everything else.
Sure.
An argument I've heard from some Christians is that because this is a realm of the church, the government should completely get out of issuing marriage licenses and everything, just get out of marriage business completely and just leave it up to the individuals to deal with and remove any legal aspect of marriages.
And I've had some conversations on that, as well. Obviously the government has been involved, and it would be difficult at this point to get the government out of it. But I have made the point, and my point is not that of the Commonwealth Policy Centers, that very similar to yours, the government probably shouldn't have ever got involved with it.
That wasn't my comment.
Oh, okay. Well, but similar.
That's just people make that comment. I would say government got interested in marriage. There's two reasons government got interested in marriage. This is what I noticed. At the state level, it dealt with mainly making sure relatives don't marry each other.
Right.
And making sure children are taken care of.
Right.
Both those deal with the rearing of children.
Correct.
So I would make an argument from the state level, if you're still concerned about that, obviously same-sex marriage shouldn't be issued licenses for, because the government's concern on that matter is null and void, because same-sex couples can't have children. I mean, they can't procreate.
Right.
So that goes out the window. And then at the federal level, the first mention of marriage in federal laws deals with income tax law. That's the first time it was mentioned.
Yeah.
And so the only interest from them was a tax side of things about, well, how do we
Right.
tax families different than a single person? I guess because they
Right.
decided a single person making $1 million needs
But
to
yet
be
they
taxed.
also have head of the household, which we still haven't figured
Yeah,
out.
I mean,
So
what's that mean?
what's that mean exactly in comparison to joint? How is joint? And I'm not an accountant either, but so
Yeah, no, it's okay. But anyway, so that's kind of like, that's what I struggle with as I
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about that. Another thing you talk about in the book a little bit is about some other things you've considered running for.
Mm-hmm.
You're out of office right now. We've got statewide elections coming up
Sure.
soon, other things. Is there anything you're thinking about doing with your future in politics realm? Or are you happy, hey, I'll just be state director at Commonwealth Policy Center
Well,
until
I
I
tell you what,
retire from everything?
I tell you what, after I've actually officially retired from the state government. That doesn't preclude me from running, but I did retire from state government. But God, after I termed out as auditor, God said, you need to be still and listen. And of course, I was used to going 125 miles an hour. You've known me for a while.
Sure.
And so when I hit the brakes, it was like flipping the car. But I was still and listening. And then I sold insurance for a while. And then Commonwealth Policy called me, and it was a true blessing because it's very much in my wheelhouse. And even when I talk to them, it could be a year and a half or it could be 10. If you were to ask me what some of the things I might look at, I am praying a little bit potentially about the Secretary of State. And then the other thing is I live in the 1st Congressional District, and assuming that, Comer runs for governor, and whether he will or not, I don't know. But if he does and he wins, I actually live in the 1st Congressional District, so I would pray about that too. But really, I haven't made a decision on anything. Just,
Sure.
just thinking about praying about it.
So Secretary of State,
Yeah.
a lot about elections.
Yep.
A lot about election security and everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're eyeing that up and people are considering that, they're going to ask you how you feel about those topics. Have you
Sure.
put any thought into? I mean, you seem to
I
have a
mean-
passion for Secretary of State. You mentioned it a few times in the book too, as well.
I haven't dug as deeply as I would need to if I made that decision. Obviously, you may or may not know, but I served when I was in the House. I served 13 years on elections, constitutional amendments, intergovernmental affairs when I was in the House. So I remember when HAVA and some of the other, legislation first came through. I still remember back when I was in there, we still had the old boards that you had 2 minutes to be on, the electronic boards.
Yeah.
There was no paper trail. There was nothing and I was so tickled when we finally got the scanning machines because, especially in our area over in Boyle County, because we did have, not only had a paper trail, but you also allowed voters sometimes, if you had a long ballot, a little extra time because you could just set them in a cubicle, and when they were done, they could scan it, as opposed to be limited to the number of machines that you had. So.
Interesting. And then Congress, right?
Yeah. Thought about it, prayed about it a little
Yeah.
bit. But like I said, I wouldn't do anything unless that seat was vacated.
A lot of politicians talk about praying to run for offices.
Yeah.
And with you, I believe it's sincere.
Well, thank you.
Sometimes I think they're full of it.
Well,
I
that
think
may be true. That may
if
be
God
true.
could literally
Yeah.
drive a truck by with "Don't run for office"
Yes.
painted on the side, and they'd be like, I guess that's a sign to run. Because
Well,
it's what they want to do.
yeah.
They want to run for office.
Well,
do
when
you
I-
see that at all? Do you feel that at
That's
all?
probably true of some. When, and I think I talk about it in the book, that when I first ran for auditor, I originally thought, after we lost with lieutenant governor and governor in 2011, I thought maybe I would run for Secretary of State because of those years on, and prayed about it, and God closed that door. And so, I thought, well, I still feel like a call to run, and then a couple other things happened, and prayed on auditor, and then hopped in that race. And even though it was a David and Goliath race, and we talk about, God placed in my heart to pick up the 5 stones and carry those around with me, and we probably don't have time to go all deeply into that. But I mean, that truly was, I felt like God was with, because there was no reason I should have won that first auditor's race. Even my mom didn't think I was going to win, but God blessed us. And then sometimes I question.
And there were Republicans. I mean, Whitney Westerfield lost by a handful of votes.
About 2,000 made
Andy
all
Beshear.
the difference in the world. If he had pulled about another 2,500, we might not be talking about Governor Andy Beshear, because he
I
would have
know.
never made that first step.
That's crazy, isn't it? to think about?
During that race, the last day before, we were going around, and Bevan looked at me. He said, Mike, I'd love to have you, but I got to have Whitney. I was like, well, what about me too? You want me too? You know?
He's like,
You'd be
I
all
need
right.
to not be hamstrung here.
That's right.
by Attorney General. Well, thank you so much, Mike.
Thank
Where
you for
can
having me on.
people buy this wonderful book?
They can go to Amazon.com and look for Pawpaw's POV by Mike Harmon.
That's spelled PAPAW space POV. Okay, just make sure everybody has it right.
We got it. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm Andrew Cooperrider here, your host for the day, or so far, your host for this past show here on Kentucky's Voice. Until next time, we'll be